My ex is dating my cousin because she's jealous that our daughter likes my girlfriend, but I'm asking for full custody after a dinner where my cousin wants my daughter to call him Dad. My ex-wife Lauren is 32, and I'm 33. We got married when we were 24. Everything went well the first year. We both found jobs, rented a small apartment near downtown, and spent weekends at farmers markets. But then Lauren got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but neither of us was unhappy about the news. In fact, we were excited. Our daughter was born when we were 26. After she arrived, everything changed. Lauren left her job to stay home with the baby because we couldn't count on help to take care of her. I started working more hours to cover the difference. By the time I got home every night, we were both so exhausted that there was no energy for anything else. That's how relationships were down, when instead of talking about interesting things, you only talk about baby appointments and how your boss is a pain in the ass. The fighting started about 6 months after our daughter was born. Lauren said I wasn't helping enough, which wasn't true, because on weekends when I was home, I took care of the majority of things for our daughter. During the week it was hard when I had to work 10 to 12 hours. She said I didn't understand how hard it was to be alone with a baby all day. It got ugly fast. We tried to make it work for the sake of our daughter, but when she turned 2, we both knew it was best to end things. The divorce was surprisingly smooth, because even though we were sick of each other, we agreed that divorce was the right path for everyone, including our daughter. We agreed on shared custody with alternating weeks. My daughter would spend 1 week with me and 1 with Lauren. We did the exchange on Sundays at 6 in the evening. For the next 4 years, this arrangement worked perfectly. Lauren got a job, plus some help from family and babysitters to care for our daughter. I got promoted and also got some help that wasn't available during our marriage for reasons that aren't relevant. But with my new salary plus Lauren's job, it was easier to hire help, along with the support that became available. Our daughter was at each of our homes about 2 weeks a month, so there were only 2 weeks when we needed to figure out who would watch her while we were working. My hours also dropped considerably, since I didn't need as much money. We were cordial during drop-offs, and also when we had to coordinate anything related to our daughter over the phone. We both dated people from time to time, but nothing serious. We had an unwritten rule not to introduce our daughter to anyone unless it was a relationship that was serious. My daughter was fine. She never complained about the arrangement. She had her own room in both houses, her own toys, her own routines. It seemed like we had achieved the impossible, a divorce that didn't destroy our daughter. A year ago, I met my 29-year-old girlfriend. I liked her a lot, but more importantly, she seemed to like the idea that I had a daughter. After 6 months of dating, I knew it was different from anything I'd had since the divorce. I asked Lauren if it would be okay for her to meet our daughter, and she said there was no problem. She wanted everything to be as smooth as possible for everyone. My girlfriend met my daughter for the first time, and they got along immediately, maybe too well. From then on, she began to be present in my daughter's life. She would come over and stay some nights if it was my week with my daughter. They did things together, like watching a movie or even helping her with homework. Lauren really liked spending time with my daughter and with me, and everything went pretty well. Until the problems with my ex began. One day she asked me to meet to talk about something important regarding our daughter. We always did things over the phone or during exchanges, so it seemed serious. She told me she wanted to meet my girlfriend before things went any further. I didn't know why this was necessary, but Lauren insisted it was for the safety and well-being of our daughter. I arranged a lunch for the two of them to meet, something my girlfriend agreed to because she wanted everything to go well. The lunch was 2 weeks later. My girlfriend, Lauren, and I sat at a corner table to talk quietly, and wow, that was a good idea. The conversation was stiff. Lauren asked my girlfriend about her job, where she grew up, what her family was like. It felt less like lunch and more like a job interview for a maximum security position. My girlfriend answered everything politely, though it seemed rude to me. In the end, Lauren said my girlfriend seemed fine, but that she hoped I would be careful about the example I was setting for our daughter. When I asked what she meant, she replied that she only wanted what was best for our daughter. In the following weeks, I noticed Lauren's messages became shorter and colder. She started asking to change custody days at the last minute, something she had never done. 3 weeks ago, Lauren showed up at my house on a Friday afternoon to talk. It was her week. So I was alone, and our daughter was staying with one of Lauren's relatives. I brought Lauren into the kitchen. She looked nervous, but also strangely defiant, like she was bracing for a fight. She said she needed to tell me something before I heard it from someone else. She was seeing someone. And it wasn't casual. It was serious. I told her that was fine. I had always encouraged her to date again whenever she felt ready. But when she said serious, she meant serious in a completely different way. Because it was my cousin. I just stared at her. My cousin is 28. He's the son of my mother's sister. Growing up, our families lived in the same neighborhood. I didn't have any siblings, but my cousin basically filled that role. And not in a good way. He was competitive, arrogant, and always trying to one-up me throughout our entire childhood. After the divorce, he started messaging me more. He wanted to grab beers, catch up, act like we were close. I mostly ignored him. I had my hands full with work and raising my daughter. I asked Lauren how long it had been going on. She said about a month. They ran into each other at a park, started talking, exchanged numbers. And the rest is history, according to her. She claimed they had real chemistry, and she wasn't going to apologize for moving on with her life. I told her I didn't care who she dated. But my cousin was a terrible choice. And before anyone says, OP is just jealous, trust me, my cousin is bad news. Lauren immediately got defensive. She said I had no right to comment on her relationships. I told her fine. But I wanted him kept away from our daughter until I was comfortable. To her, that wasn't fair. Because I had introduced our daughter to my girlfriend. I pointed out that I asked her permission first. My relationship was serious. And it would be confusing for our daughter if her mother suddenly started dating my cousin. Lauren said she didn't care. And if I could do it, she could too. Then she doubled down. She said she was taking our daughter out to dinner with my cousin that very night. I told her absolutely not. She responded that it was her custody week, and she would do whatever she wanted. To me, she was being reckless. To her, I was being controlling. The argument went nowhere. Lauren turned around and left. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept checking my phone, hoping she'd message me and say she changed her mind. Nothing. The next morning, Saturday, Lauren brought our daughter to my house at 10. She wasn't supposed to return her until Sunday evening. Apparently, our daughter had been unusually quiet all morning. She barely spoke, except to ask to come to my house. Lauren thought maybe she wasn't feeling well. I brought my daughter inside, and Lauren left. My daughter went straight to her room without saying a word. I followed her. She was sitting on the bed, staring down at the floor. I asked if she was okay. She didn't answer. Minutes passed. Then she started crying. It took nearly an hour before she finally told me everything. The dinner was at a restaurant near Lauren's apartment. My cousin was already there waiting. During the meal, he kept calling her sweetie and little one in a way that made her uncomfortable. Then he started joking about being her new dad. He told her she should practice calling him dad instead of using his name. At first, my daughter thought he was kidding. She laughed. But he kept pushing. He said now that he and Lauren were together, he'd be around all the time. And it would be easier if she just started calling him dad right away. My daughter told him she already had a dad. My cousin replied. Sure, but now you have two dads. Isn't that awesome? My daughter looked at Lauren, hoping she'd step in. But Lauren just kept eating her salad like nothing was happening. My cousin became more insistent. He said if my daughter was going to be difficult, it would make things harder for everyone. He didn't raise his voice. He wasn't openly rude. But his tone made it clear it wasn't a joke anymore. My daughter stayed silent for the rest of the dinner. When they got back to Lauren's apartment, she begged to come to my house. Lauren told her no. She had to stay until Sunday. My daughter cried herself to sleep. The next morning, she begged again. This time, Lauren gave in and brought her back to me. After she finished telling me everything, my daughter asked quietly if she had to go back to Lauren's next week. On Monday morning, I called my lawyer immediately. I explained the situation and asked what my options were. He told me I could file for an emergency custody modification based on emotional distress. It wouldn't be easy. But if I could show that my daughter's well-being was at risk, a judge could temporarily adjust the custody agreement. I filed the paperwork that same afternoon. 3 days later, Lauren was notified. She called me immediately, screaming. She accused me of trying to take our daughter away over one bad dinner. I told her it wasn't about the dinner. It was about her judgment. And about allowing my cousin to intimidate our child. She hung up on me. 2 days later, I started seeing social media posts. Lauren was claiming I was jealous of her happiness. That I was trying to ruin her moment just because she had started a new relationship. She never mentioned that relationship was with my cousin. She never mentioned what happened at dinner. Lauren's family seemed to be supporting her no matter what. I don't even know if everyone knew she was dating my cousin. But her parents definitely did. And they didn't seem to have a problem with it. I didn't like the idea of my cousin for a lot of reasons. And who Lauren dated wasn't really my business. But after everything that happened. Yes, it was a problem. My own family had mixed reactions. My parents were horrified when I told them what my cousin did. They know him far too well to be surprised. My mother called her sister and confronted her. It didn't go well. My aunt defended her son and claimed that my daughter was just seeking attention. My mother screamed at her that she was the second biggest idiot in the family. And that she had only lost first place because of her son, but not by much. She also told her to stay away from her granddaughter. And that included her son. My father supported me too. But since it wasn't his sister's child, it was easier for him. The problem is, my cousin had a rough teenage years. There were substance abuse issues. Mostly alcohol. But we can't rule out other things during that period of his life. Now he claims he's sober, and I can believe that. But I still wish Lauren had taken things slowly instead of rushing into this. Honestly, it feels like too much of a coincidence for this relationship to have happened naturally. During our arguments, Lauren has said things that make me think she's jealous of my girlfriend. Not because of me. But because my girlfriend connected so well with our daughter. And my daughter has never called my girlfriend Mom. At least not in front of us. It almost feels like Lauren is trying to win some kind of competition. Like she wants to prove that her partner will be loved more, or something. The custody hearing is scheduled for next month. My lawyer says we have a case if my daughter is being affected by all of this. But it's not a guaranteed win. If she hasn't suffered any clear trauma, it may not be enough. Lauren has generally been a good mother. And judges don't like taking a child away from their mother unless there is clear evidence of harm. My daughter's testimony will be crucial. And that worries my lawyer. My girlfriend has been incredibly supportive through all of this. She's been staying at her own place more often to give me space. She even said she would understand if I needed to pause our relationship until everything was resolved. I appreciated the gesture. But honestly, I wanted her by my side right now. My daughter has been extremely attached to me since that dinner. She doesn't want to go back to her mother's house. I've tried explaining what the custody agreement means. But I don't know if she fully understands. All she keeps repeating is that she doesn't want to go back. And she doesn't want to see my cousin again. She had met him at family events before. But she'd never experienced anything like this. And I'm starting to think there may be more to it than just him pressuring her to call him Dad. Edit, I don't think listing everything my cousin did during his addiction years is worth it. My mother knows very well what happened, she lived through it. I'm someone who believes in second chances. But when it comes to my daughter, I'd rather be safe than sorry. That's why I wanted to wait until things with Lauren were more serious. Because even if it's been years since he got sober, addiction struggles last a lifetime. And even if this situation isn't directly about that. Or at least not that I know of. My cousin's behavior, based on what my daughter described, is not normal. Update number 1, the custody hearing was yesterday. I need to write this while it's still fresh, because I genuinely cannot believe what happened in that courtroom. The weeks leading up to it were brutal. My daughter stayed with me the entire time because a temporary agreement was granted until everything could be resolved. The judge approved it based on a prior meeting my daughter had with a court social worker. Lauren was given supervised visits twice a week at a family center in the city. My daughter went. But it wasn't good. She didn't want to open up to her mother. After those visits, Lauren would usually post on social media about how painful it was as a mother to be separated from her child. She told a distorted version of what happened. She claimed our daughter was crying because she didn't want to leave her. That wasn't what was happening. Unfortunately, my lawyer advised me not to respond publicly. First, because it would be my word against hers. I wasn't going to record interactions between mother and child just to prove a point. I wasn't going to expose my daughter. Just so random strangers and idiots online could watch. And if I only posted my version, it would still just be my word against hers. Then my cousin showed up at my house one night, about 2 weeks before the hearing. I had just put my daughter to bed. I was cleaning the kitchen when I heard pounding on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw him. I didn't open it. He kept knocking. Then he started yelling that he knew I was inside and that we needed to talk. I called the police. By the time they arrived, he was gone. The officers took my statement and said they would document it. My lawyer used that report in court. He also submitted the messages my cousin had sent me, including several where he called me pathetic, and said I was jealous that Lauren had moved on. There was one message where he said he was doing all of this because my daughter would eventually realize I was the problem, and she would want to spend more time with him and Lauren instead. Lauren's attorney tried to argue that I was taking things out of context. She presented character witnesses who spoke about what a devoted mother Lauren had been. Her sister testified that Lauren called her daily, crying about missing our daughter. Lauren's mother said I was acting out of spite, because Lauren had found happiness. Then the court reviewed a session with the court-appointed psychologist, who had a much longer meeting with my daughter. The first meeting had only been preliminary. In this longer session, more details about that dinner came out. For starters, my cousin had been drinking alcohol with Lauren. Yes. The same recovering addict. My daughter obviously didn't describe it in those terms, but she mentioned there was a bottle, shaped like a wine bottle, and that both of them were drinking. Also, my cousin was much more aggressive than my daughter originally told me. She was scared to say it at first. But she opened up to the court worker who specializes in cases like this. And finally, they were inappropriate in front of her. Mostly my cousin. He was being overly affectionate with Lauren. And while Lauren seemed to try to tell him to stop, it still happened. That's as much as we could get from what a child was able to explain. And it sounded bad. After the psychologist testified, the judge called for a recess. He said he needed time to review additional material. We waited in the hallway for over an hour. Lauren sat on the other end with her attorney and her family. No one spoke. When we returned to the courtroom, the judge announced his decision. He granted me full custody. Lauren would have visitation every other weekend, from Saturday morning to Sunday afternoon, on the condition that my cousin could not be present during any of those visits. The judge said my daughter had been very clear about her fear and discomfort around my cousin, and that Lauren's lack of reaction at the dinner showed poor judgment. He also pointed out that Lauren's lies on social media reflected badly on her as a mother. Lauren started crying. Her attorney requested a stay so they could appeal. The judge denied it. He said the order was effective immediately. That night, my aunt called screaming at me for what I had done to my cousin and Lauren. According to her, everyone now knew about his relapse. Which tells me she knew too. My mother wasn't happy with my aunt either. But their relationship was already pretty bad before this information came out. I told my aunt that her son needed help for his own sake. She hung up. A few hours later, my mother called again. My aunt had sent a mass email to the entire extended family, accusing me of making up stories about my cousin to win custody. The email claimed my daughter had been coached to say those things, and that my cousin was completely sober. My mother replied, copying everyone. But she wanted me to know what was happening within the family. The following days were quiet. My girlfriend came over most nights. She helped with dinner and homework. Last weekend was Lauren's first visitation. I dropped my daughter off at the family center Saturday at 9. Lauren was already there. My daughter walked slowly toward her mother. But she didn't hug her. Lauren tried to talk to her, but my daughter only nodded or shook her head. They left together, and I went home to wait out those 24 hours. It's obvious I don't like this arrangement. But it's what the judge ordered. That night, my daughter told me Lauren cried a lot during the visit. Lauren kept asking why she said those things to the judge. She told my daughter that she hurt her. And made everyone think she was a bad mother. My lawyer already knows about this. Yesterday, I received a text from my cousin. He said Lauren had broken up with him. And he blamed me for ruining their relationship. He said Lauren was a mess since losing shared custody and couldn't handle being in a relationship. I blocked his number immediately. This morning, my lawyer called. Lauren's attorney had reached out to modify the visitation schedule. Lauren wants to return to the original custody arrangement. Her argument is that my daughter has adjusted and everything has calmed down. So there's no reason for limited visits anymore. We responded no. These arrangements don't change based on Lauren's moods. The next morning at breakfast, I asked my daughter if she wanted to spend more time with her mother. She said she didn't know. I asked if she felt safe at Lauren's house. She said yes. But only if my cousin wasn't there. I explained that he wouldn't be allowed during visits. She asked how I could be sure. When I told her the judge ordered it, she thought for a moment. Then asked if we could just leave everything the way it is. If Lauren wants to modify the agreement, she'll have to file her own motion and we'll end up back in court. For now, everything stays the same. Lauren's social media has gone quiet. She deleted her posts. I don't know if she did it because it was the right thing. Or because she wants to look good. In the end, during her visit, she still pressured our daughter not to say things that made her look bad. My lawyer has asked me to wait and see how Lauren behaves during the next visits. It's possible visitation could be taken away too. So it's better to document and be patient. Update number 2, Lauren filed a motion 3 weeks ago to modify custody. The hearing is next month. Her attorney sent a thick packet of materials, including sworn statements from her family. A psychological evaluation she completed voluntarily. And a letter from a counselor she's been seeing. They're basically arguing that she's done the work to address the concerns from the last hearing. And that she deserves equal custody again. My lawyer reviewed everything and said her case is stronger than he'd like. The psychological evaluation shows no red flags. The counselor's statement talks about Lauren processing the situation and learning better boundaries. Her family's declarations say she's been a devoted mother. And that the current arrangement is too restrictive. But then something happened that nobody expected. 2 weeks ago, my daughter was on her regular weekend visit with Lauren. I dropped her off Saturday morning like always. Everything seemed normal. On Sunday afternoon, when I picked her up, my daughter was quiet again. But not shut down like before. She didn't seem scared. She seemed thoughtful. We got home, and she went to her room to put away her bag. A few minutes later, she came into the kitchen, where I was starting dinner, and asked if we could talk. I sat down with her at the table and waited. My daughter said something had happened at Lauren's house that weekend. Lauren's parents had been there most of Saturday. They brought food and spent the afternoon watching her play in the yard. Everything was fine. Until my daughter overheard Lauren and her mother talking in the kitchen. She had gone to get a glass of water. Lauren's mother was telling her to stop being so emotional during visits because it made my daughter uncomfortable. Lauren said she couldn't help it. She missed her, and the situation was unbearable. Then Lauren told her mother something else. She said she never should have gotten involved with my cousin. That it was a stupid decision, made out of spite. Seeing me move forward with my girlfriend. Seeing how happy my daughter was with her. Lauren wanted to hurt me back. And when she ran into my cousin at the park. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew it would bother me. My daughter heard everything. She didn't understand all of it. But she understood enough to realize Lauren had been with my cousin just to upset me. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him what my daughter had overheard. He said it mattered. But it was complicated. A child her age might not interpret adult conversations correctly. It wasn't the same as something she witnessed with her own eyes. It was something she only heard. But then something else happened. My cousin was admitted into rehab again. That part wasn't surprising. What was surprising was that as part of his program, he agreed to make amends. And one of those amends was sending me a written apology letter for what he did. The letter included a lot about when we were younger and our history. But also what happened recently. For starters, Lauren hadn't met him in a park. She met him at a bar. That's where they had their first date, after she contacted him. And to be absolutely clear, Lauren knew about his addictions. And even if it wasn't her idea to go there, the fact that a recovering addict suggests meeting at a bar should have been the first massive red flag. Yes, they serve non-alcoholic drinks. But it's still too much temptation for someone fighting their own demons. He also confessed that Lauren had encouraged the idea that our daughter should call him Dad. And that she was fine with them drinking that night to loosen things up. He admitted they were overly affectionate with each other. Not explicitly sexual, but still far too much to do in front of a child. Yesterday, my lawyer submitted the handwritten letter. It was authenticated by an expert to confirm it was his handwriting. In case he gets subpoenaed later and tries to deny it. Because of this, Lauren's visits have been suspended until a final decision is made. My daughter seems okay. She's doing well in school. She even made a new friend. The hearing next month will determine what happens with custody. My lawyer believes this new information about my cousin will help. But he warned me not to get too confident. My ex is still presenting herself as someone who has grown and changed. And that could influence the judge. It all depends on how serious the court considers this. And possibly whether my cousin is willing to testify and provide more detail. I hope his treatment works. And that he does the right thing in the end. But right now, it feels like a chess match. And every move you make could cause problems several moves down the line. Update number 3. The hearing was last week. I'm writing this from my living room while my daughter sleeps upstairs. And my girlfriend is in the kitchen making tea. The last few weeks have been overwhelming, and I need to write it down before I forget details. Lauren's attorney came prepared. She brought in a child psychologist to testify about the importance of the mother-daughter bond. And how limited visitation can damage it long-term. She brought Lauren's counselor, who explained the work Lauren has done to process her emotions and improve her judgment. 3 of Lauren's co-workers testified about how responsible and caring she is professionally. Lauren herself testified about how much she missed our daughter. And how she had learned from her mistakes. It was effective. I saw the judge taking notes. At times, he seemed sympathetic. Then my lawyer presented our side. He called my cousin to testify. My cousin explained everything. And went into even more detail than what was in the letter. He apologized for what he did. And said this was part of his recovery, making amends for past harm. The judge asked him several sharp questions. Why was he speaking up now? Did he have any hidden motive? My cousin said his only motive was telling the truth. Even if it made him look bad too. We also submitted a report from the Supervised Visitation Center. The supervisor documented that during visits, Lauren displayed inappropriate behavior. If my daughter wasn't enthusiastic about going with her, Lauren pressured her instead of trying to comfort her and talk calmly. Finally, after a long, tense pause, the judge ordered an end to supervised visits. And granted me 100% custody. There was shouting in the courtroom. Mostly from my ex and her family. Her attorney tried to argue with the judge, but it was over. We went home. That was 5 days ago. Yesterday, I received a message from Lauren. No filter. She thinks she has nothing left to lose. I don't agree, because if she ever tries to modify the agreement again, this will all be evidence of her behavior. She called me every name imaginable. She insulted my parents, my girlfriend. Even my cousin. I saved everything, in case we need it in the future. My cousin has been released from rehab. And now comes the hardest part. Staying sober without the constant support you get in those centers. My aunt still isn't speaking to my mother. But I do know a few things, thanks to other relatives. And even though I prefer to stay as far away from my cousin as possible, I truly hope he can get through this. Addiction is not a joke. But as far as I'm concerned, I'll be keeping my distance. Especially when it comes to my daughter. The relationship between my girlfriend and my daughter has only grown stronger. My daughter asks my girlfriend's opinion now. What she should wear to school. How to draw a certain animal. Whether a joke is actually funny. My girlfriend isn't a replacement for Lauren. But she has become an important part of my daughter's life. And I'm grateful for that. Because I know how difficult it can be to date someone who already has a child. None of this was directly her fault. But she was there for me during my darkest moments. Last night, my daughter asked me if I was going to marry my girlfriend. I asked where that came from. Apparently, a friend at school told her that when a dad has a girlfriend for a long time, they usually get married. It completely threw me off. I hadn't really thought about it. But now I can't stop asking myself the question. I won't be doing it anytime soon. But I think my daughter has a valid point. Still, I believe it's too early to take that step. I don't know if the current arrangement will last. Or if Lauren will eventually try to modify custody again. I don't know if my cousin will stay sober. Or fall back into old habits. But I do know this is coming to an end. And I probably won't have anything else to update for a while. Update number 4. To give some perspective. The last time I posted here was a little over 3 years ago. So I wanted to share a life update, if that's allowed in this subreddit. I want to talk about what my life has been like. How my daughter is doing. And what happened with my ex and my cousin. My daughter is doing very well. She's thriving, even though she has continued to stay distant from her mother. Lauren tried to get some kind of arrangement that would allow her to see her again. And she partially succeeded, but more on that later. The important thing is that my daughter is okay. And she hasn't replaced her mother with my now wife, the way Lauren, and some people, always seem to assume. I think their relationship is more like friendship at this point. It's hard to explain. But they feel more like sisters or best friends. I married her about 6 months ago, after dating for more than 3 years. If I'm remembering correctly, I eventually proposed. Like I mentioned I was thinking about in my last update. But it was much later. We talked about it for a long time first, until we were both comfortable with the idea. Then I made it official, with a ring and everything. My daughter was the most excited out of everyone. She danced at the wedding with me, my wife, my parents. And basically anyone who still had legs left to keep up with her. That's what happens when you play soccer at school. As for my cousin. As far as I know, he hasn't relapsed. I've seen him a couple of times, and he seems okay. He apologized to me. But he hasn't seen my daughter again, by my decision. Both times I saw him, my daughter wasn't present. If he's fallen back into old habits, I honestly don't know. Maybe he hides it well. I can't say. I truly hope he hasn't. But it's also not my problem anymore. It's more of a wish, because of all the damage it could cause. As for my ex. She filed for custody again about a year after my last post. She was granted supervised visits at a center. They didn't go well. My daughter was older by then. And much more vocal about how uncomfortable she was with her mother. Lauren tried to make things better. But she lost patience easily. Eventually, the visits stopped. And she never asked about her daughter again. At least, not after that. Before then, she would still ask for updates about her maybe once a week. After that, nothing. The last time I heard anything about Lauren was when she found out I was getting married. She had plenty to say about me. About my wedding. About my fiancé. Even about the dog we adopted. But I didn't give it much attention. The rest of my life has been peaceful. Very little drama. Which is exactly how I like it.